This is the Skoda Rapid, conceived almost a decade ago. This is the Hyundai Verna, updated version of the car that was launched in 2017. Now there is a bit of an age gap between the two, but that age gap also gives this car the advantage of a low starting price. Whereas the Verna, on the other hand, being the modern car, has all the latest technology and packaging that it could achieve in this particular bracket. Now both these cars are united by the common thread of the body style, the segment that they operate in, and also the engine configuration. 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol. Now both these variants and that engine is pegged towards the driving enthusiast. So which one is the better car? Let's find out. Let us begin with the Rapid, which currently wears the European Fabia's face, and that chisel look certainly works for it. In terms of dimensions, the Rapid is marginally smaller than the Verna, but the angular design adds a sense of width and length. The Verna has gone more angular than before, more so for the turbo variant, and the imposing grille and the busy bumper design adds more modern touches, which coupled with the complex lighting elements imparts a premium stance. Both the cars seen here distinguish themselves as the sportier variants in their respective families. The Rapid wears a Monte Carlo badge in this racy shade of red, with its 16-inch alloys finished in a dual-tone scheme. The Verna wears a turbo badge and flaunts a honeycomb pattern on the rear bumper, which looks polarizing in my opinion. It is complemented by a 4 diffuser element and twin exhaust pipes. While I like simple designs that age well, I would side with the Verna on this one. It looks premium and fast and is an attention grabber. Let's talk about the cabins now. The 8-inch infotainment is the big talking point for the Rapid's cabin, and this is something that was exclusive to the Monte Carlo range, and now you get it on the lower trims as well. Now think of this as an Android tablet that is placed into the dashboard, which means that it can connect to your phone, do some Android things. It can also use the internet from your phone and let you install and access some apps, including Netflix. So if you want to watch a movie on the screen, well, you can do that. Though I'm not sure if I would want to do that, I would rather do it from the convenience of my phone. Now this system is not a native system from the Volkswagen parts bin, which means that the UI is different. It's not like what you see in other Volkswagen or Skoda cars. Even the placement is a little weird, and the placement of the USB ports and the aux ports, well, that is in a very inconvenient location inside the glove compartment. But otherwise, yeah, this is what you get. This is up with the times, if you want to say so, but that's about it. Ergonomics and space utilization is in fact very last generation with this car, and yet there is something very likable about the Rapid's cabin even after all these years. The typical European build quality does play a part in that, but if gizmos and connectivity is what you seek, the Rapid will leave you wanting. The Verna's cabin is the best in class, at least as of now. Now the instrumentation is all digital. The layout is very similar to what BMW does with its digital instrumentations or cockpits. This one, very easy to read, very functional as well. It's got a soothing display and the colors and everything is really nice. The infotainment, it sort of complements that in terms of the colors and the layout and all of that, but then the screen size, I believe, is a little too small for this category of car. I would have liked a larger screen size. But then again, the infotainment itself, the system itself is at the top of the class with connected technologies and all of that. So this is right now the best that you get in this particular category. The placement is also quite safe, high up on the dashboard, so you don't have to take your eyes too far off the road. You also get a wireless charging pad, but my plus size phone won't fit here, which is a bit of a downer. Yes, there are additional USB ports and 12-volt socket and all of that, so there are enough charging sockets within the car. But if I have a wireless charging pad, I would want a plus size phone to fit in there. It is a nice feature to have if you have a smaller phone though. Also, the AC vents are now new in terms of their design, but you do not get an individual flow control for them, which in my books is a bit of a downer. The fit, as always, is excellent for the class, but in this all-black treatment, the shiny, scratchy plastics are a bit of a letdown. The front seats are ventilated and more supportive in the Verna though, and at the rear, it has marginally better space and comfort than the Rapid. So for the equipment, ambience, space and comfort, the Verna scores more points. But also note that the Verna Turbo only comes in the top spec trim, meaning that the Rapid could offer you more value if you are on a budget. Both these cars have the common thread of the 1-litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engines, both churning out over 110 PS, and the differences are pretty astonishing. The 1.0 TSI engine in the Rapid is so much enjoyable to drive. Now with the Polo, this same engine returned about 9.4 second 0 to 100 sprint. The Rapid, even with its slightly larger size and all of that, isn't too far behind, 9.8 seconds. That is the same zone as the Mark 1 Skoda Octavia RS. That is how much the technology and the TSI goodness has improved over the years. It's improved by leaps and bounds. So even if the chassis and the electronics architecture is aging, the engine is right up there, and it is a clear indication of where technology has headed in all these years. The Rapid also does a better job than the Polo 1.0 at insulating the 3-cylinder thrum and the harshness, making the engine all the more enjoyable as it races to its 6,500 RPM red line. Under 1500 RPM, the engine does feel like it's gasping for breath, but once the turbo kicks in, you feel the surge, and you are rewarded with a meaty torque spread between 3 to 5,500 RPM. So as of now, the Rapid 1.0 can only be had with a 6-speed manual transmission. The same 6-speed torque converter automatic from the Polo will make its way into this engine bay by about August or September is what Skoda tells us. So if you are to buy it before the festive season, the manual is your only option. There's no DSG for this one. The shifter doesn't feel as slick though, and second to third often feels quite notchy. The clutch pedal is springy too. I quite like the steering on the Rapid. The contouring is such that your hands fall in that nice 10-10 position. The perforation on the wheel, the stitching, all of that feels nice to the touch. That flat bottom steering wheel design also looks quite good and sporty, and it's got that old school feel, that precision, that nice weight it's got at speed, at highway speeds and all of that. It really feels nice and contributes to that driving fun. In comparison, the Verna steering feels a bit over-assisted, feels a bit artificial. This one is the one that I would go with. In fact, if you're going to use these cars in the city only, the Verna feels more convenient in all respects. The Rapid belongs on the highways and the twisties. So the Verna's engine settles into an idling RPM of about 900 revs, which is nice, but then the 3-cylinder vibrations, pulsations, you feel that not only in the pedals but also in the seat, and that's not something that I like. But it gets off the mark quite cleanly, which is a good thing. But again, the 1-liter engine in an executive sedan like this just beats me. It would be fine for a compromise sedan like the Aura, but in a car like this, the Creta's 1.4 petrol would have made a lot more sense. Now 120 PS sounds really nice on paper. It's also more than what the Rapid offers, but when you do a 0 to 100 run, well, this is slower than the Rapid by a good 2.5 seconds. In fact, it's also slower than its own sibling, the Verna 1.5 petrol manual, and it's all because of the overcautious DCT gearbox, which always launches in a restrained manner to keep the gearbox safe and will keep dropping significant revs with each shift. But the engine has a linear power build-up and never feels out of breath even at lower revs. And you can fix a bit of the gearbox laid-back attitude with the chunky paddle shifters. While the Rapid only gives you the option of a manual transmission, the Verna 1.0 only gives you the option of an automatic, a 7-speed DCT at that. Now, small engines, DCTs, not a great package, I've always said that, but I've also said that Hyundai has managed to get this tuning perfectly right. So even for the Verna with its tiny engine, this size and this weight, they've still managed to get a really nice tuning for it. So when you're driving in the city, you don't have a lot of jerky performance. When you're out on the highway, you want to pull a quick overtake, it's quick to downshift. And when you're cruising, it will quickly move up to higher gears and get you good fuel economy. In fact, astonishingly, despite being an automatic, this car managed significantly better fuel economy numbers than the Rapid with its manual transmission. Now, in terms of the suspension behavior, the Verna clearly has a more supple ride as compared to the relatively stiff nature of the Rapid suspension. But sharper bumps usually result in a noisy suspension behavior for this car, which is a bit of a surprise considering how well the newer Hyundai suspensions have been tuned, especially in something like the Creta, which is fairly silent compared to the rest of its competition. This one is relatively noisier, especially on sharper bumps or on a series of bumps. Also, the suspension, like I said, is on the softer side. There is that suppleness to the ride, there is a softness to the ride, but beyond 140 kilometers an hour on the highway, there is a floaty feel to it as well. And the over-assisted nature of the steering just sort of dampens that confidence further. The Verna also feels understeery once you start pushing it around corners. So for highway runs or fun drives in the twisties, it's the Rapid all the way with its more controlled dynamics and taut handling manners. The Verna makes up for the lack of handling prowess by outclassing the Rapid with the safety features it has to offer. The Verna 1.0 automatic also gets 4 disc brakes, but interestingly, the stopping distance is slightly longer than that of the Rapid, which has drum brakes at the rear. But what I really like is the braking was often spongy. That was something that we complained about with the previous Verna or the outgoing model. It was also not very confidence inspiring is what I'd said. It was not very predictable. All of that is now fixed with the new Verna. Slowing down for speed breakers, slowing down for traffic, slowing down at highway speeds, all of that is a lot more confident with the new Verna. The brakes do feel a little grabby, but I would any day have that grabby sensation over something that is unpredictable. So this one is definitely better than the outgoing car. So while the Rapid 1.0 TSI is the ideal enthusiast car between these two, it's hard to ignore the Verna's feel-good factor that comes with the new age equipment and the DCT gearbox. But what is also hard to ignore is the new Honda City. It achieves a fine balance between handling dynamics and a supple ride, and the new petrol 1.5-litre engine manages a rapid equaling sprint of 9.8 seconds. And alongside that sprightly performance, it is also extremely fuel efficient. Take a look at the figures to get an idea of where the new City stands with respect to these two. But to be fair to this comparison between the 1-litre engined Rapid and Verna, let us sum it up with only these two cars in focus. So to sum it up, on the points table, the Verna is clearly the winner. It shows that creature comforts, packaging, technology, it's come a long way over the last decade or so. The Rapid shows its age in all these departments. But at the same time, from a driver's perspective, it covers all the basics. The engine has a good poke in it, the dynamics have enough feedback in them to put a smile on your face every time you drive the car. Choosing the Rapid over the Verna, you would save a lot of money. In fact, you would save a lot more if you were to go with the temptingly priced entry-level rider variant as well. And even that has enough to put a smile on your face without feeling like a compromise. So much so that I would actually recommend that car over the other hatchbacks or the compromise sedans, the compact sedans, sub 4 meter sedans and all of that reside in that particular price bracket. But if budget is not a concern, the Verna is the car that you want to sign up for. Yes, the engine is not as quick and it has that understeery nature, but it more than makes up for it with the lovely gearbox, the convenience of an automatic, the paddle shifters, the sharper braking and all of that. And then you have a huge list of features, which the sum of all of which is a lot more than the premium that you would have to shell out for this car. These features, these creature comforts are still the segment benchmark, and that makes this car overall better in this test and the clear and the justified winner of this test.